Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Dr. Olivia Hart, and today we are going to talk about something that I think may be one of the most misunderstood things in modern medicine, especially once you cross the age of 60, why calcium alone will not protect your bones after 60. I know that sounds almost offensive to say, because we have been told for our entire lives that calcium equals strong bones. Drink your milk, take your calcium tablet. That is the gospel. And if you have been dutifully taking your 1,000 milligrams of calcium every day and your bone density scan is still getting worse, I want you to know something important. It is not your fault. You have simply been given one piece of a much larger puzzle, and the rest of the puzzle is the reason we are going to walk through today. So let me set the stage. We are not going to spend this video demonizing calcium. Calcium is still necessary. Your skeleton is still built from it. But the assumption that calcium is the answer to bone loss after 60 is, in many ways, the assumption that gasoline is the answer to a car problem. Gasoline is necessary, but if your engine, your transmission, your fuel lines, and your spark plugs are all broken, pouring more gasoline into the tank is not going to move the car forward. That is exactly what is happening inside your skeleton. Your bones are not calcium banks. They are mineral banks. They store calcium, yes, but they also store roughly 85% of your body's phosphorus, more than half of your body's magnesium, and meaningful amounts of zinc, copper, strontium, silica, and protein matrix. When I say bone is a mineral bank, I mean it the way a checking account is a money bank. The bone is not just where the money sits. The bone is where the money is actively working, moving in and out, being spent on critical jobs elsewhere in the body. Here is the part that changed my whole clinical perspective. When the levels of any of those co-minerals drop in the blood, your body has a backup mechanism. It pulls those minerals out of the bone to keep the blood levels stable, and the bone, very patiently, gives them up. That will keep your blood test looking completely normal, while your skeleton quietly empties out. So the standard blood calcium test in your annual physical is, in honesty, almost useless for predicting whether your bones are healthy. Your bones can be hemorrhaging their mineral stores for years before the blood calcium ever moves 1 point. So if calcium alone is not the answer, what is the answer? The answer is a symphony of at least 5 players, and we are going to walk through each one in the order that matters most. Player number 1, magnesium. Magnesium is, in my honest clinical opinion, the most underrated mineral in the entire conversation about bone health after 60. Magnesium regulates calcium. Let me say that again. Magnesium regulates calcium. Without adequate magnesium, the calcium you are consuming does not know where to go. It circulates aimlessly in your bloodstream and eventually deposits in the wrong places. That is why some people taking high-dose calcium supplements end up with kidney stones. That is why some end up with arterial calcification. That is not because calcium is toxic. It is because calcium arrived without a guide. Magnesium is the guide. Magnesium is also a cofactor for the enzymes that activate vitamin D. So if you are low in magnesium, you can take 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 international units of vitamin D3, and your body still will not be able to convert it into the active form that helps your bones. That is not a vitamin D deficiency. That is a magnesium deficiency that is masquerading as a vitamin D deficiency. Research published in the journal Bone Research back in 2016 confirmed what many of us had been seeing clinically for years. Adequate magnesium status is essential for active vitamin D to do its job, and inadequate magnesium is now considered a major driver of bone loss in older adults. Uday et al., Bone Research, 2016. A separate review in 2019 looked at this relationship directly and concluded that optimal magnesium and vitamin D balance together improve bone outcomes in the elderly in a way that either nutrient alone cannot. PMID Review, 2019. Consider the typical older adult I see in clinic. She is on a low-dose diuretic for blood pressure. She takes a PPI for reflux. She sleeps poorly. She drinks 2 glasses of wine in the evening to relax. By the behavior pattern alone, she is losing magnesium from 4 different directions every single day. Yet she walks in asking for more calcium. So if there is one single most important upgrade you make to your bone program after 60, it is to fix your magnesium status first, before more calcium, before more vitamin D, before any prescription medication. Magnesium. Now, how do you actually fix it? Most blood tests will tell you your magnesium is fine. That is because less than 1% of your total body magnesium actually lives in the blood. The other 99% sits inside your cells, inside your bones, and inside your tissues. So a normal serum magnesium reading is not reassuring. Behaving as if you are deficient is often the safest assumption after 60. Food first. Dark leafy greens, pumpkin seeds, almonds, cashews, avocados, dark chocolate above 70% cocoa, black beans. Get those into your rotation daily. Supplements second, especially if you have any of the following. You take a proton pump inhibitor for reflux. You take a diuretic for blood pressure. You drink more than 2 alcoholic drinks a day. You sleep poorly, or you are under chronic stress. All 5 of those drain magnesium aggressively. In those situations, supplementation is essential. My clinical preference is magnesium glycinate or magnesium malate because they are well absorbed, well tolerated, and do not loosen the bowels the way magnesium citrate can in higher doses. A reasonable target for most adults over 60 is somewhere in the range of 400 to 600 milligrams of elemental magnesium per day, split across 2 doses. Monitor with your physician, particularly if you have kidney disease. Player number 2. Vitamin D3. Now we come to vitamin D3, and I want to be extremely specific, because there is a lot of confusion about dosing after 60. Vitamin D3 has 2 jobs in this story. Job number 1 is to help your intestinal lining absorb calcium from your food into your bloodstream. Job number 2 is to send a signal to your parathyroid glands, these tiny glands sitting behind your thyroid in your neck, telling them that calcium is plentiful in the blood, and they do not need to rob more calcium out of your bones to keep the blood level stable. That second job is critically important, because when vitamin D3 is low, your parathyroid hormone rises, and parathyroid hormone, when it stays elevated over months and years, is essentially the foreman that constantly raids your bone bank. It pulls calcium out to keep your blood calcium at the level your nerves and your heart depend on. Your skeleton becomes the silent donor. So vitamin D3 is not optional after 60. It is foundational. But, and this is critical, you do not push vitamin D3 to extreme doses on your own. You test. You get a 25-hydroxy vitamin D blood level. You aim for somewhere between 40 and 60 nanograms per milliliter. That range is where the bone health research consistently shows benefit. Below 30, your parathyroid hormone is almost certainly elevated, and your bones are paying the price. Above 80 or 90, you begin to lose the benefit and may start running into other issues with calcium deposition where it should not. Your dose depends on your absorption, your skin color, your sun exposure, your body weight, and your gut health. A reasonable starting point for many adults over 60 is 4,000 to 5,000 international units daily, adjusted upward if needed, based on follow-up testing. Always work with your physician. Always pair it with magnesium, because, as we just covered, magnesium is what activates vitamin D3. Without that pairing, it is like turning on a lamp without ever screwing in the bulb. Player number 3. Vitamin K2. Now we get to what I call the missing traffic cop of bone health. Vitamin K2, specifically the MK7 form, is the nutrient that tells calcium where to land once it is in your blood. It activates 2 key proteins. One is osteocalcin, the protein that pulls calcium into your bone matrix. The other is matrix GLA protein, the protein that keeps calcium out of your arterial walls, your kidneys, and your soft tissues. If vitamin K2 is low, calcium ends up in the wrong neighborhood. It hardens arteries, it builds kidney stones, it stiffens soft tissue, and your bones, the place you actually needed it, stay starved. Japanese clinical research from 2020 found that MK7 supplementation increases bone mineral density, bone quality, and improves bone strength, particularly in postmenopausal women, MK7 and Bone Quality, PMC, 2020. A separate 3-year randomized trial in healthy postmenopausal women confirmed that even modest daily doses of MK7 slowed age-related bone loss and improved bone strength measurements compared to placebo. 3-year MK7 postmenopausal trial. So vitamin K2 is, in my view, non-negotiable after 60. Dosing. For general bone support, between 100 and 200 micrograms of MK7 daily is a common starting range. For more aggressive support, if you have osteopenia or osteoporosis, some clinicians have used therapeutic ranges from 400 micrograms up to even higher amounts under supervision. Because vitamin K2 works on clotting pathways as well, anyone on warfarin or other vitamin K antagonist medications must coordinate with their prescribing physician before adding it. If you are not on a blood thinner, MK7 is widely considered very safe. Take your K2 with your vitamin D3. They were designed, in nature, to work together. Many of the best formulations combine them in a single soft gel. Player number 4. Protein. This one surprises people. We have been culturally programmed to think of bones as minerals, but the protein matrix of bone, the collagen scaffold that the minerals crystallize onto, is roughly half of your bone's volume by weight. If that matrix gets weak and brittle, the minerals have nothing solid to cling to. The bone becomes more dense on a scan but more fragile in real life. That is one explanation for why a woman can have a normal DXA bone density reading and still break a hip from a simple fall. Animal protein, complete protein with all essential amino acids, supports that collagen matrix. Research from the International Osteoporosis Foundation reviewed multiple large studies and concluded that older adults consuming adequate protein, generally 1.0 to 1.2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day, had measurably better bone density and lower fracture risk than those consuming less. IOF, protein and bone. Where to get it? Eggs, poultry, fish, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, lean red meat in moderation, bone broth, and if needed, a clean whey or collagen peptide supplement. Spread protein across all 3 meals. Don't pile it into dinner and walk away. Your bone-building cells, the osteoblasts, need a steady supply of amino acids throughout the day. And here is a tip many specialists now emphasize. If you take your calcium supplement or your collagen supplement, take it away from your main protein-rich meals. Calcium and high-protein meals, taken in big handfuls at the same time, can compete a little for absorption. A small window of separation, 30 to 60 minutes, can make a meaningful difference in what actually gets used. Player number 5. Weight-bearing and resistance exercise. Now we arrive at the part of the program where most of my patients, in the beginning, push back. Because it is the part that requires effort. Your skeleton is one of the most responsive tissues in your entire body. It remodels constantly based on the mechanical demands placed on it. When you load a bone through weight-bearing activity, whether that is walking, hiking, climbing stairs, or lifting weights, you send a signal to your osteoblasts, your bone-building cells, to lay down new collagen and new mineral in exactly the lines of stress where they are needed. When you do not load your bones, you send the opposite signal. You tell them they are not needed, and they atrophy. After 60, this signal matters more, not less. A landmark meta-analysis of weight-bearing exercise in postmenopausal women, published in the journal Sports Medicine, found that weighted exercise can maintain bone mineral density in postmenopausal women and can actually increase bone mineral density in the spine and hip among women with osteopenia and osteoporosis. Marquez et al., Sports Medicine, 2007. Harvard Health's review of multiple subsequent trials confirms this. Bone responds, bone adapts, bone grows stronger, at any age, when given the right loading stimulus. What does a realistic bone-building program look like for an adult over 60? 3 to 5 days per week of weight-bearing activity. Walking, hiking, dancing, climbing stairs, low-impact aerobics, plus 2 to 3 days per week of structured resistance training, squats to a chair, deadlifts with light dumbbells or kettlebells, overhead press, rows, step-ups. Heavier than you think you can do. but graded up over months. Always with supervision from a qualified trainer or physical therapist if you have existing osteopenia, osteoporosis, or prior fractures. And no, swimming and cycling alone, while wonderful for cardiovascular health, do not load the skeleton in the same way. They are not enough on their own for bone protection. They need to be paired with true weight-bearing work. Now let me put all 5 players together and explain why calcium alone fails. Suppose a 65-year-old woman walks into my clinic with a new diagnosis of osteopenia in her hip. Her well-meaning physician has told her to take 1,200 milligrams of calcium daily and to walk more. She does both faithfully. She increases her calcium intake, her blood calcium rises, but without magnesium, vitamin D3, and vitamin K2 fully on board, that calcium has no clear destination. Some of it makes it to her bones. Much of it circulates aimlessly, deposits in her arterial walls, and is excreted through her kidneys, possibly contributing to a kidney stone on the way out. Without vitamin D3, her parathyroid hormone remains high, and her bones continue to be raided nightly to keep her blood calcium up. Without protein, her collagen matrix is thin, so even the minerals that do arrive have a weak framework to crystallize onto. Without loading, her osteoblasts have no signal to build. They sit idle while your osteoclasts, your bone-resorbing cells, continue their baseline dismantling work. The result: her next bone density scan, 2 years later, shows further loss, despite her diligent calcium intake and her daily walks. She is told to begin a prescription medication, usually a bisphosphonate, and the cycle deepens, because the prescription, while slowing bone breakdown, does not address any of the 5 players above. It puts a chemical lid on bone resorption. It does not give the bone any of the raw materials it needs. This is, in my clinical view, the single most important education gap in adult bone health today. Now, what about prescription medications? Because many of you watching are on them, or will be offered them, and you deserve an honest walkthrough. The bisphosphonates, Fosamax, Actonel, Reclast, and the rest work by slowing the cells that break down bone. They are not building anything. They are not adding magnesium. They are not adding K2. They are not adding protein. They are not telling your parathyroid to stand down. They are simply slowing one side of the equation. For very high fracture risk, they can be appropriate, but they are not the foundation. They are at best a temporary chemical support while you rebuild the foundation. Denosumab and romosozumab work by different mechanisms, generally more aggressively, and they can produce real density gains, but again, they are working on the cellular ratio of breakdown to build. They are not substituting for the raw material symphony. Which brings me to the question I get almost every week. Should I throw out my calcium supplements entirely? No. Calcium is still necessary, but reassess 3 things. Number 1, the form. Most over-the-counter calcium supplements are calcium carbonate. Calcium carbonate is the cheapest form and the most poorly absorbed. Tums, for example, are calcium carbonate. It requires strong stomach acid to break down, and as we age, our stomach acid production often declines by 50% or more. Calcium citrate is far better absorbed, particularly in older adults. So if you are taking a calcium supplement, prefer calcium citrate. Take it with food, because food stimulates the acid production that helps it break down. Eucla Health, calcium cofactors. Number 2, the dose. The body can really only efficiently absorb about 500 milligrams of calcium at a single sitting. More than that, and the rest is largely wasted. So if your total daily calcium target is 1,200 milligrams, split it across 2 or 3 meals. Building it up in 1 megadose at breakfast is not efficient. Number 3, the source. Get as much as you can from food: dairy, yogurt, kefir, soft cheeses, sardines with bones, fortified plant milks, leafy greens. Food source calcium comes packaged with the cofactors that help your body use it. Supplements are a backup, not the main course. Now let me talk about something important that very few physicians discuss with their older patients: the medications that quietly damage bones. Proton pump acid production that helps it break down. Eucla Health, calcium cofactors. Number 2. The dose. The body can really only efficiently absorb about 500 milligrams of calcium at a single sitting. More than that, and the rest is largely wasted. So if your total daily calcium target is 1200 milligrams, split it across 2 or 3 meals. Building it up in one megadose at breakfast is not efficient. Number 3. The source. Get as much as you can from food: dairy, yogurt, kefir, soft cheeses, sardines with bones, fortified plant milks, leafy greens. Food source calcium comes packaged with the cofactors that help your body use it. Supplements are a backup, not the main course. Now let me talk about something important that very few physicians discuss with their older patients: the medications that quietly damage bones. Proton pump inhibitors, omeprazole, pantoprazole, esomeprazole, the reflux pills that millions of older adults take every single day. They reduce stomach acid, and that reduced acid means you cannot properly ionize calcium, magnesium, zinc, and several other minerals. Long-term PPI use is associated, in multiple large observational studies, with measurable increases in fracture risk. Effective age on calcium absorption, Norden et al., 2004. If you have been on a PPI for years, please have an honest conversation with your prescribing physician about whether you still need it, or whether you can step it down or taper off with appropriate alternatives. Glucocorticoids, prednisone, and the family. These are powerful anti-inflammatories used for autoimmune disease, asthma, and many other conditions. But chronic glucocorticoid use directly suppresses osteoblast function. It also increases renal calcium loss. It depletes vitamin D. Bone loss on chronic steroids can be as rapid as 12% per year in the first year alone. If you are on long-term steroids, your bone program needs to be aggressive from day one, not after your first fracture. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, the common antidepressants. There is growing evidence that long-term SSRI use is associated with modest but real decreases in bone density, likely through effects on serotonin receptors in bone cells themselves. Again, do not stop your medication without your physician's guidance, but do be aware that bone protection becomes even more important. And chronic stress itself, cortisol, your body's own long-term stress hormone, directly suppresses osteoblasts. It mobilizes minerals out of bone. It interferes with sleep. It promotes inflammation. Chronic stress is, in a real sense, a bone anti-building state. Walking daily, mindfulness practice, social connection, and good sleep hygiene are, surprisingly, all bone protective behaviors. Now let me close the loop with what I consider the most empowering insight from today's discussion. Bone loss after 60 is not inevitable. The standard cultural narrative says that as you age, your bones just naturally thin, and that is the way it is. That is not the full truth. That is the average outcome in a population that is, on average, deficient in magnesium, insufficient in vitamin D, low in vitamin K2, under-consuming protein, too sedentary, too stressed, and over-supplementing calcium without its required cofactors. Role of calcium in human aging, Beto, 2015. If you rebuild those 5 players, your bones can stabilize. They can, in many cases, regain measurable density. The body is constantly remodeling. The osteoblasts are waiting, at every age, for invitation. Give them the invitation. So here is the protocol I share with my patients and with you now. Step 1. Get a baseline 25-hydroxy vitamin D blood level. Aim for 40 to 60 nanograms per milliliter. Step 2. Discuss with your physician the addition of magnesium, ideally magnesium glycinate or malate, at 400 to 600 milligrams elemental per day split into 2 doses. Step 3. Add vitamin K2 as MK7 at 100 to 200 micrograms per day, taken with your vitamin D3 and a fat-containing meal for absorption. Step 4. Reassess your calcium source. Prefer calcium from food. If supplementing, use calcium citrate, split into 2 or 3 doses of 500 milligrams or less across the day. Step 5. Eat 1.0 to 1.2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight daily, spread across all meals. Step 6. Begin a structured weight-bearing and resistance training program appropriate for your health and your baseline fitness, 3 to 5 days per week. Step 7. Review all current medications with your physician specifically for bone impact. Ask whether any can be reduced, substituted, or stopped. Step 8. Walk daily if nothing else, briskly, outdoors if possible, both for the loading effect and for the sun exposure that supports vitamin D. Step 9. Protect your sleep at all costs. Sleep is when your biggest growth hormone pulses occur. Pulses that signal bone remodeling and repair. Step 10. Manage your stress. Breathwork, walking, time in nature, connection with people you love. Your bones literally feel your emotional life through the cortisol axis. Give them peace. One last thing. Nothing in this video is a substitute for your personal physician's guidance, particularly if you already have a diagnosis of osteoporosis, if you have had a fracture, or if you are on prescription medications that affect bone. Use this video as a starting point for a deeper, more informed conversation with your care team. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. I hope this gave you a more complete picture of what your bones actually need after 60, and why the simple answer of more calcium, while well-intentioned, has been holding so many of us back. Until next time, take care of your bones, take care of your sleep, take care of your stress, and I'll see you in the next video. This is Dr. Olivia Hart, wishing you strength, mobility, and many healthy years ahead.